And welcome to Toni and Nic. And if you're joining us on the recording to this Google Hangout, where we're talking about micropolitics and power, we've each read an article by Judy Smead, Megan Kimber, Jan Millwater, and Lisa Eric called "Power Over, With, and Through: Another Look at Micropolitics." And I've asked Toni and Nic to read through and join me. Hopefully, if you're watching the recording, you will see a little yellow option on the screen as you joined in that tells you can click in and have a go at interactivity. I think there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down where you might say, oh, you know, Toni, I really like that comment that you made, or Nic, how could you think that? No, no. Or yay, Nic, we really like what you said. And there's also the option if you want to have a go at answering the questions, if you want to add the discussion underneath the YouTube clip. But we've come up with 4 questions and we'll work our way through them to try and understand the concept of micropolitics and what it might have to do with leading change. So thanks again, Toni and Nic. I'm looking forward to your opinions. As always, that I really learn a lot from our discussions. Was the article all right for you both to read through?
Yes, I found it pretty easy to relate to and understood the concepts. Yep, so yeah, pretty easy reading.
That's good. How about you, Nic?
Yeah, it was good. It was a nice quick one.
Yeah, yes.
That always helps. All right, well, let's have a look at the first question, and that's really to unpack the idea of what is meant by micropolitics. So it might be a new phrase for some people. Other people have, you know, they live for micropolitics. They love the, you know, the cut and thrust of the power relationships. I'm wondering, as you read through the article, what do you think the word micropolitics meant? And is there something in the article that really helped you understand it? For me, when I'm thinking about micropolitics, I think about the movie The Devil Wears Prada, and you know, the magazine editor. So who played? Is that that's Meryl Streep? Yeah,
Meryl Streep. Yep.
And she's in the office, and Anne Hathaway's character comes in, and she makes her feel so small, and it's really just the work of an eyebrow or going, that's all. And you know there's so much power happening in the room, but it is so subtle. For me, that micropolitics is when it's, you know, subtle interplays of power. But the article gives us, you know, even better than my, you know, Ms. Streep, what we might understand. Would either of you like to have a go at thinking through what you thought the micropolitics meant?
Would you like to go first, Nic, or?
Yeah, sure, I can go first. I kind of see it as like just the relationships between people within an organization. Not so much the relationships that happen outside the organization. It's definitely what's happening inside, which is why it's micro. But it doesn't have to always be negative. It can be positive micropolitics, I think. Yeah, so really it's just about like that interpersonal relationship sort of dynamic that happens between leaders and the followership, or just amongst peers in an organization.
That sounds good. Toni, what did you think it meant?
Well, I think it's the whole dynamics between individuals, and then how the roles, I suppose, that those individuals play within the team, and then how those teams interact, and then how the leaders in the team. So it's all those dynamics. And I think there was a quote in the article that I liked that I suppose resonated with me, which was Blaise, in his article in 1991, said it's the use of formal and informal power by individuals and groups to achieve their goals in the organisations. And I think that that's what it is. It's about that everybody has their own agenda, I suppose, or their own goals, and it's how they go about achieving those.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a really nice definition, and that it can be informal and formal relationships of power, and that it can be positive and something that builds people up, but it can also be quite negative and destructive, and there's a continuum, but power happens wherever you've got leadership and followership interactions, because there's only a limited number of resources and not everybody can have everything they want, so there's that understanding of power. And I think in the article they talk through 3 types of power relationships that I think is really helpful. It's a really nice, easy and way to understand it. So if we can talk them through, there's the power over, the power through, and power with relationships. Probably the one that is, I think, easiest to identify with is the power over, because that's probably more a traditional sense of hierarchical power. Nick, do you want to start us off? What did you understand the power over relationship to be about?
So I saw power over as like your traditional kind of hierarchical system, like where the boss is at the top and they just do like everything, like it's their way or no way, and if you don't like that, you can get off the bus, and if you're not willing to get off the bus, they will hang you up and then they will chuck you off the bus themselves. I don't know, it seems really kind of like dictatorship kind of esque, I guess, but I would imagine that there's totally ways that power over could be used like appropriately, or that where times when power over has to be done that way, just because like the boss is the only person who can do that.
Thank you. And I think there are times when power, so you're saying that there are times when power over is going to be necessary and that's what's needed. It's not necessarily an evil act of leadership.
No, but I think the potential is there for evil, obviously, but also good, like or responsibility, I guess, like yeah.
Toni, what was your understanding of power over?
Yeah, like Nick, I thought it screams dominance and authoritarian type, I suppose, leadership. I also agree with Nick that there's times when it is required, and if we're talking about leaders, sometimes they need to make those decisions to protect their workers, to shelter them from perhaps things that they don't need to be involved with. So sometimes it actually is a good thing. They can take that responsibility away from others, but when we're looking internally, yes, sometimes it can be quite dominant, and you're not really I suppose encouraging collaboration or sharing with others. So it has the potential to have benefits as well as some disadvantages.
And I think in the article the authors make the point that it's whose needs are being met. So later in the article there are 2 vignettes, and the first principle, when she finds that her power and position is probably being challenged, her needs were being met, where she starts giving some favoritism to one of the deputy principals and starts creating an alliance. So the micropolitics it may not happen overtly, it might be kind of that covert power relationship where alliances are being built, and there is, it's quite transactional, where there might be some rewards for some people or punishment or not for others. I'm just looking, in the article there was some nice example of really poor principles using, there's some levels, 3 levels of different types of power. I think it was on page 29. Yes. Level 1, which is that indirect and moderate aggression. So just, discounting teachers' thoughts, withholding resources, favoritism, even that, the Meryl Streep, that's all, dismissing. And level 2 was direct and escalating aggression, spying, sabotaging, unreasonable demands, being critical. And level 3 was direct and serious aggression, lying, making threats, mistreating others, sexual harassment, racism. So not that power over or dominance is always like that. As we've said, there are times where it's really valuable, but I guess we need to be aware that it may not always be really visible, because things like discounting somebody's feelings or isolating them can be that's where the micropolitics comes in. It may not be overt, which I think is really helpful to know. I think for some people who've experienced that, you're going, okay, I'm not imagining it. This is a power thing that's happening. I need to be aware of it, whether you're a leader or a follower. Let's have a think through the next two, because I think they're really closely related, the power with and power through. Nick, do you want to talk us through what do you think is the difference?
So I saw power through as like the leader who like provides the ability for someone else to take charge of something. So it's still hierarchical, I guess, but someone else is leading that particular change or that particular project or whatever. And I guess it's that facilitative nature where you as the leader step back and say, okay, cool, like Stephen or John or Susan can take over this role for the moment. Like, they can lead you through this part. I don't need to do this. I'm not the expert. They are. And then, like, the difference is power with is when it's like, okay, we're all going to work on this together as equals this time. Like, everybody gets an equal share. Like, just because I'm the principal doesn't mean that my vote counts for any more than any of yours does. And that includes like students and parents of students and anyone that's involved in that kind of school community. And I guess that's the difference. Instead of like we're through, they appoint somebody else to lead. With everybody kind of leads together. Yep.
Okay, that's a nice distinction. Toni, what do you think?
Well, I agree with what Nick said, but I saw power through as the leader still takes on a guiding role, so it becomes like the facilitator, so gets, I suppose, others on board in getting their ideas and thoughts, but still ultimately perhaps makes the decision after evaluating those ideas. So becomes quite, like, as I mentioned, like a facilitator of others, but gets their ideas, whereas power with is empowering others, working together to achieve that common goal, like Nick said, so that everybody, and trusting, I suppose trust was the key word there for me, is that in power with, you're trusting that these other people are the experts, that they're the ones that have the knowledge. I think in the example it was the new science curriculum that they used, and Blair allowed the teachers to take control because they were the ones who were going to be using that. So it empowered them to feel that this was their baby, so to speak, so that they were making the decisions that were going to affect them. So even though it was a curriculum change that they had no control over. So it's giving control back to others, I think, is what the power with is.
And I think you've both got it a really good understanding, because I think it's about who has the control over the power. So with the power through and power with, it's a shared control, but who ultimately has the decision-making power, who's going to decide. And I think certainly in Queensland and even Australia at the moment, the context makes a really big difference. In Queensland, I've noticed for school leaders, they've been given a lot more responsibility and accountability, and they've been told your job is on the line if you can't make these things happen. So in lots of cases, they're feeling like there are mandated goals, I have to meet these goals, and they're often doing a power through, like, okay, you guys work, but we've got to meet these goals, and my head's on the block, so I'm not giving away too much power, whereas power through can happen. I think the risk might be slightly greater for a school leader. You know, if I share the power, what happens if people don't reach the outcome that I've been told we need to reach? So having the confidence to lead a power through, or a power with, sorry, a power with kind of change and still meet mandated requirements requires quite a lot of skill, I think, from the leader. And you're right, Toni, I think trust is one of those key words that comes up. I want to, I guess, open it up for you to think about how this might apply to your own experience and how it helps you understand. Have you been in a situation where you can think, that helps me understand here, or I've seen a really effective use of this kind of power to lead a change or not? And maybe think aloud about what kind of insights this new understanding of micropolitics or power might help you understand that situation. Toni, do you want to go first? I can see your thinking faces on.
Yeah. I suppose in my experience, in my different positions and workplaces that I've obviously worked in, there were certainly leaders that I could clearly say now, after reading this article, that they were definitely using that dominance, that power over. This is the change. It has to happen. Make it happen. I even have heard the term, Nick was referring to a bus before, I've heard the term get on the bus or you'll get run over by the bus as a term. So that to me was very much power over. Having said that, there's also been some other leadership styles that have very much, I've been luckily enough been involved in that power with, so empowering me to get the job done, and there was that trust there that I would meet those deadlines. So that's very motivating as an employee because you feel like you're part of something rather than just doing what you're told. So you are allowed to create and use those skills that obviously that person trusts that you have. So I've definitely been involved in both, and I suppose the power through as well. And in fact, sometimes these leadership styles have all been from the same leader. So it comes down to, I suppose, the situation and when they need to employ those particular styles.
All right. Thank you, Toni. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I was just thinking, like, I haven't really been in that many leadership positions, or like, so I don't know. Like, I can't really reflect on ever using power over, through, or with myself. But I was thinking from a student perspective, I would like to see more power with situations from principals with student leadership. Empowering students to make meaningful decisions about their education. So whether it's like with a student council, making like decisions that empower that council to make real change within the school, or helping them to make real change. I think that would be a really good use of power with, when you can empower the students to take hold and really move their own education in a particular way. Like if there was a review undertaken of the curriculum or something, I would really like to see student voice heard about what was being learnt and how it was being learnt and how it was being received by the students. Even at tertiary level, I think that kind of voice isn't sought out enough, even though you get the kind of pulse surveys and stuff. I'm not really sure how effective they are, and I'd like to see more of a voice given to students about their own education through power with.
I'm going to ask you why you think it doesn't happen more often, because what you've talked about is feeling like you've had a voice, and that links to the moral purpose behind change. And I think, Toni, you said you felt more motivated when you had experience of being led, trusted and being told why things were happening and being, part of the decision making. So moral, feeling empowered, having a moral purpose sounds all very good and noble. So why doesn't it happen more often, particularly for students? And because we're in a tertiary institution, that's really helpful for me to know.
I don't know. I would guess it would be about like leaders' fear of losing control, that the students Like, what do students really know about what they want to learn, or how to learn? And I guess maybe there's that fear of student voice not really being that helpful. But I would say, like, it's their learning, so they should probably get a say in it. I'm not sure. Maybe with high school students as well, there's that same kind of feeling. But I would strongly argue that, like, when it comes to, like, the receiving of learning, no one knows better than the learner, I guess. Then, like, so I don't know. Maybe that's why it's just a fear, or just an inexperience of sharing that power. It's a resource, I guess. So yeah.
Toni,
Good.
why do you think the power with and through isn't used as often, perhaps?
From my experience, a lot of time it's deadline and meeting quality and curriculum requirements, and ensuring that I suppose you tick all those boxes, and sometimes timelines and deadlines don't give us enough time to research and evaluate and find better ways. And logically, it would be fantastic to get that student voice. And I think Nick's right, we should find ways of doing that. But having said that, we still have to meet standards and requirements that are set down or from top down about what AQF level we've got to teach to, you know, what content we need to cover to meet the requirements of that particular unit. So it's finding that balance, I think, is hard. And I agree with Nick. I would imagine there is a certain amount of fear as well about losing control, because traditionally the teacher or lecturer has always been in a position of the giver of knowledge, but I think that is shifting, and I think that you can perhaps empower students maybe within the classroom, and then continually make changes to the unit as you move forward. But unfortunately, you still have to meet those guidelines and restrictions around the quality framework and what level you're teaching to and the content you cover.
I think you've both identified some really important things there. Nick, you were saying it could be fear, it could be lack of knowledge, you know, not knowing how to do it. And Toni, time is always so critical, and having you know, quality standards and knowing how to meet them in that time. So I think the times where I have wanted to use facilitative power but have snapped back into maybe power over have been where I have felt threatened personally, and maybe there was some micropolitics that I hadn't read or I was misreading, where there might have been some resistance or there might have been some avoidance. And instead of me reframing that resistance as, okay, this person is finding this challenging to learn, how do I help them learn this? I responded probably out of a structural response where I've gone, we've got to meet this deadline. I can't, you know, I can't stop with this resistance. I actually have to squash it and move on. But if I've taken the time to say, let me understand this resistance and let's work through it, then the change has actually been more profound and far-reaching. So I think often enrolling people in the change itself can make it more sustainable long-term, but finding the sweet spot over which is the thing we're going to spend time and collaborate on, and by doing that, it will actually help me achieve this, and this, I think is a smart way to lead, because I don't think you can collaborate on everything, and there are going to be some contexts where decisions just need to be made by a leader and everyone goes, yep, we're happy with that, let's move. But other times people are going to want to have a say and feel like they've been involved as well. So I think this is where the dance of leadership is really important, where that intuition and the art and being able to read the micropolitics and know how do I blend this and keep the tempo moving. It's fascinating because it's not black and white, it's not straightforward. So our last question to finish up is, one of the authors make the statement that understanding micropolitics is essential for a leader. I want to know if you agree. What do you think? Toni?
Sorry, you cut out then a bit, Jill. So it was micropolitics is essential for a leader. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Do I agree with that statement? Yes. Yes, I think a knowledge of it definitely, and an awareness of micropolitics, that it exists. And a lot of people probably know that it exists, but didn't know that it has a name. That's micropolitics. We all talk about the politics in a place, or what's going on. So I think it's essential that as a leader you're aware of that, you're in tune with your staff and what's going on, and listening, I think, and empathy and all of those things as a leader will give you an understanding of what are the underlying issues going on. So I see it a bit like, you see the duck on the water. While everything looks great on the top, the feet underneath are paddling like crazy. And I think that micropolitics is a bit like that. All these things can be happening under the surface. So unless you stop and have a look and see what's going on there, you really can't understand, what the facade is on the top, so to speak. So I think an understanding and an awareness of micropolitics as a leader is essential.
Okay, sounds good. Nic, what about you?
Yes, I agree with the statement. I think it's really important that even if they don't have an understanding of micropolitics, that they have an understanding of how relationships work and how they can make people feel within those relationships. Just in order so that they can be fluid in their power usage. Sometimes they can have power over, and sometimes they can step back and make it power with, or make that halfway point of power through. So yeah, I would say definitely they need to understand, if not micropolitics, then how their relationship with their followers works, I guess.
Well, it sounds to me as though you two are really nicely positioned for your own leadership journeys there. You've got a great understanding. I think not only do leaders need to understand micropolitics and the way other people are using power, but to be really quite good at using micropolitics themselves, knowing how to build alliances, how to build up networks and to build trust, and how their own actions are contributing to the whole change process. And of course, being able to read micropolitics is very helpful as well, because if you're not aware of the micropolitics, you can be, this is my plan, this is what we're doing, and you're going ahead and no one's with you and you don't understand why. So it's about the humanity and the relationships. I think you're very right there, Nic. So I want to say thank you both for being part of this discussion. I'm sure people who are tuning in are really appreciative of your wisdom and how you've shared it today. And I hope that other people can add some comments below the video and enter into the discussion. So thank you very much, and I'll look forward to another time maybe when we can get together and talk about leadership and how to do it well. I'll wave bye. Thanks, Toni, for sharing the bushland of Brisbane, and thank you, Nic, for tuning in from home. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Jill.
Thanks, Jill. Bye, Nic.
Bye.
Bye, Toni.